This week on the Rouge, White, and Blue CFL podcast, the Winnipeg Bombers may have lost again, but we've got lots of winners for you. Could our picks and predictions actually be worth something? Find out next. Hi, welcome to the Rouge, White, and Blue CFL podcast. My name's Oz Davis. I'm the host of the show. Joining me, as always, is my co-host Joe Pritchard, to whom I must ask, or I must say, Joe, I swear to God, that bumper music sounds like the CFL hold music. The game is just about to begin.
You know, for last year, it was the stuff from last year from CFL Plus was okay, but this year's they're playing a whole lot more commercials, thankfully, so it's not the same music repeated over and over again every commercial break.
Right.
But this year's is a bit of a jam. It jams out a bit. I mean, by about week 6, I'm going to be like, oh God, get this over with. But right now, it sounds like the CFL to me, so it's all good.
Right. I must say, kudos again to the league, to CFL, for the new streaming service that they have. Out here in Europe, it is awesome because, like, 4 days a week now, basically, I get up in the morning and I just put it on. I put on the previous night, for me, game. It's fantastic. It's fantastic. It's really great. I get to watch these things at my leisure, and I can pretty much skip the commercials always. I don't know. I'm sure we don't get the same thing you get from the Canadian broadcast or the American broadcast, if there is such an animal. But they still throw on some commercials for like the gear, like the league website selling the gear.
Yeah, that's the same thing we get on the American games that aren't on CBS Sports Network.
Oh, right,
I mean,
yeah,
once on
yeah.
CBS Sports Network, you're gonna have your normal commercial activities. On CFL Plus, it's just CFL stuff, which great. I mean, it'd probably help them revenue stream wise to have a few sponsors stick around on those streams, but like really, who are the CFL going to get from the American side of things?
Yeah,
Or
at this point,
the international side of things.
Yeah. Those sort of advertisements are way too difficult to maneuver economically and politically. That's for sure. Too difficult to do that. Okay, well, week 2 of the 2024 CFL season is in the books. Gijo, would you like to accentuate the positive or the negative first?
Well, I think people watching the stream are going to notice that things look a little bit different on my end right now. Simply because I had my laptop decided it did not want to play nice tonight. It did not want to do its functions as it normally would. It kind of reminds me of Winnipeg's offense in the first half of both games. Like, it's there. I can see it. It's I literally, the phone is sitting on top of the laptop right now. It's
Uh-huh.
where it's supposed to be. It's just not doing what it's capable of doing.
Uh-huh. Fantastic segue. All right, let's just jump right into it. We'll take victory laps on our various achievements last week. Moment, later in the show, I guess. Okay, so let's start it off. Ottawa Red Blacks 23, Winnipeg Blue Bombers 19. My notes say, Joe, the floor is yours. What what do you have to say for your now 0-2 2024 Winnipeg Blue Bombers?
I think I covered it pretty well.
Right,
Uh,
that's you want to go with that? Okay.
it. I mean, injuries are there. It's frustrating, but it's part of the game.
Mhm,
They're still working on finding a special teams returner to cover for Jaren Grant being in Toronto now. The, what they've done is they've done the opposite of what they've been doing over the past few years.
mhm,
Past few years, they get up early. They have a running game that strikes fear into the hearts of their opponents, meaning that they're going to be coming up in the box. First quarter, you usually have a long pass over the top of that defense, and that opens up the game. And then usually the offense has a dry spell in the middle of the game. Other team catches up a little bit, and then in the fourth quarter, the Bombers just say, "Okay, this is our game," and have like a 5 to 10 minute drive that just drives a stake into the hearts of the opponents. When you don't score in the first quarter at all, and when you turn the ball over in the first quarter, you don't get to be up ahead and having the other team playing chase. Winnipeg's not built to play chase right now. They
mhm,
just aren't.
mhm,
Missing Kenny Lawler,
mhm,
that's the big deep threat that you have to worry about if you're the other team. Makes it easier to keep Winnipeg from being able to come back. Uh, their own mistakes are causing them to fall behind early and then play catch up. They're built to go ahead early and smash and wear you down. They're not built to go, oh, we're down 13. Now what? Now, they did make a comeback or two last season. It's not impossible for them to do, but it's not their game. And
mhm,
they're off their game right now.
mhm.
Also, didn't it could have been storm related from last week because of course we had a long live the night for a little bit as we're
Right.
sitting and waiting for the final 2 minutes of the game to be played.
Yeah. Classic
But
Winnipeg situation, and also a great thing about the streaming because I just went all the way past that. Having
yep,
seen this situation before, I just scrolled to the right.
yep, that's a beautiful thing. Except for when you're sitting around waiting for the final 2 minutes of the game, which is wonderful. But I didn't see a lot of creativity in the play calling this past week, which is
Mhm,
unusual because Buck Pierce is usually very creative in going east west a lot of times and getting the ball in the hands of different playmakers. It felt like this game he was just like, okay, Zach, go win us the game.
mhm.
And that didn't quite get there. I mean, they got to the 7 at the end when they were trying to play catch up, but
Right.
then it was 3 passes to the end zone, and
Mhm,
Ottawa's expecting that.
mhm, mhm, mhm. Yeah, nice defensive play there to close things out.
Right.
Um,
And let me speak
as
highly
opposed.
of Ottawa for a second because we haven't done that in this show for about 5 years.
Okay, please.
So if their defense did the job, got some turnovers, the offense did just enough, and it was clear that they had some faith in Drew Brown. They let him throw the ball a lot. They also exploited Winnipeg's lack of defensive line depth. Winnipeg came in a defensive lineman short from what they usually do, and then had to go down to injury early in the game. So
Right, right.
just like here,
Mhm,
we'll stop our run game, and Winnipeg couldn't, which is another thing that hasn't happened in a long, long time.
mhm,
Yeah, but Drew Brown was cool, took care of business, got the job done. Had his issues, There were some missed opportunities there. They could have run away with this at
Yeah,
certain
yeah,
points,
yeah,
but they did what they had to do to win, which
mhm,
is something that they haven't done in a long time.
yeah, yeah. I wasn't blown away by the Red Blacks. That's for sure.
No,
I will say this. I will say this.
no. And I wasn't like, "Ooh, look, a new juggernaut." It was just they took care of business when they had to take care of business.
Right, right, right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean that basically their primary asset as a team last year was just that they played smart football. Right. They always took advantage of the opportunities. Never okay. Always took advantage of the opportunities. Rarely made dumb mistakes. Um, didn't really roll the dice very often. Right. Didn't take very many big shots. But hey, again, like when you have certain disadvantages, as the Red Blacks have, that's the best thing you can do. And so again, that was this game, right? No dumb mistakes, never lost their cool, uh, didn't have too many penalties. Nice clean game by the Red Blacks. But again, there's not a lot of firepower here. And what struck me about this game is, it's from a certain perspective, you could look at it like this. The defense had one really bad drive, right? And that was the one in the fourth quarter, right? Because after they took the lead, 17-16, about halfway through the third quarter, okay? And that was when, you talk about, we haven't seen that for a long time. This is when the Winnipeg defense typically says, okay, we own the fourth quarter. Have you gotten the memo? Right? This is when we shut everything down. Sure enough, they go up midway through the third quarter. First drive out, Drew Brown connects on a 12, 14 yard or something like this. After that, nothing for a game. After that, 2 and out. Right? Okay, go into the fourth quarter. Ottawa somehow puts together a very shaky drive and moving the ball at will. Despite 2, 3 incomplete passes, despite a couple of no gainers, um, it was just for one drive. The Bombers' defense really fell apart. It was really quite shocking. I mean, the only other what was it? The only other scores they had allowed was um, on the Dustin Crum, right? On the sneak touchdown in the first.
Mhm.
By the
And
way,
lots of field goals too,
right, with,
which has been an Ottawa Redbacks tradition going back to 2014.
right, right, right. They always have the best field goal kicker in the league, right? Or that's the goal, right? By the way, I wanted to say that it was great to see Dustin Crum, right? Of course, last year, here's a guy who was the second highest in the league in rushing touchdowns. I believe he probably led Ottawa in touchdowns as well. And he got to work his magic. It was great. First quarter, gets the ball on the 2, gets 2 carries, 2 yards, touchdown, first touchdown of the season for the Red Blacks. Fantastic. Doesn't it says my work here is done, right? Doesn't play the rest of the game. Fantastic. Way to go, Dustin Crum. I like your job. But overall, I mean, aside from this, I mean, Drew Brown, 20 of 33, 238 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 picks. Okay, workman-like numbers, right? As we used to say. On top of this, Justin Hardy is he's accounting for 111 yards and a touchdown. Dominic Rhymes has another 60 yards. Pretty good coverage on Rhymes. They were not allowing him to be targeted too much. He had 8 targets on the game, 5 catches. So pretty nice defense there by Winnipeg as well. So I don't know. I mean, yeah, on the standings board, it says Winnipeg 0-2. But they're not that bad, are they?
I don't think they're bad. I don't think they've gotten off to the start that they expected, and they're not playing up to the level that we've come to expect over the past. 5-6 years. It's just not there yet.
Mhm.
Something's not quite clicking here. I think they've earned the opportunity to go, okay, let's see if we can get back on track here before everybody starts hopping off the bandwagon.
Right, right,
I
right, right.
mean, what they've done from like the last month of 2019 to now is completely unsustainable over the
Hmm,
long term. So
okay.
bumps in the road are going to happen.
Yeah,
We're here.
yeah.
Come back to me in about 3-4 weeks, and let's see if they've overcome some of these issues that they're having.
Oh yeah.
They're still having them.
Yeah.
Let's have a conversation of, okay, is this the end of that run? I'm not doing
Right.
that. I'm not there yet, though.
Oh no, no need, no need, no need. Unless you're last year's Toronto Argonauts, um, you do have these Jags, right? You do have these 3-game losing streaks, as well as the 4 or 5-game winning streaks. Okay, it's just that for Winnipeg, this is at the beginning of the season. There's no reason to push the panic button on any
Yeah.
of these teams.
If
Uh,
these back-to-back losses happen in August, we wouldn't even be talking about it really.
right, 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 right. So, okay, I don't know. So, in general, good opening win for Ottawa, but I got to say, as a Montreal Alouettes fan, I'm not fearing this team nearly as much as I was before week 2. So, I
Can
think
I make
that
a general observation from the first week?
sure, sure.
I don't think the bottom of the league is as far gone as it was last year.
Oh no, oh no, 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 no,
I
no.
think they've done their so far they've done their job and played catch up pretty well. So
Oh yeah. Oh, all these. I mean, Hamilton's 0-2. They've been competitive.
mhm.
They've lost by a touchdown twice, right?
I mean,
Less than a touchdown.
Edmonton's been competitive.
Sure, Edmonton.
Calgary's
Well,
been more than competitive. Those
oh
are
yeah, yeah,
those are three. Those are the four bottom teams from last year.
right.
Saskatchewan's clearly been competitive. We'll get to them
Mm.
certainly too. So
Yeah, yeah. We'll get to the Riders, but right
mhm.
now I want to talk about Montreal Alouettes 23, Edmonton Elks 20, and my awesome defending champion, Montreal Alouettes. Um, okay, now you said that Edmonton has been competitive, but this is one of those situations where the score was not nearly as close. Well, the game wasn't nearly as close as the score would indicate, in my opinion. I wasn't, as an Alouettes fan, I was never really too worried about this game. Uh, I just want to say this defense is awesome. I mean, in this game, three sacks, 2 interceptions, a forced fumble. Both touchdowns that the Elks scored came from Dakota Prukop on the 1 yard sneak. Uh, one of these was in the first quarter. The other was 33 seconds left in the game. Okay, so that means that, and I looked at the numbers here. That means that over 45 minutes, the Elks were out of the end zone. And in the second half, 29 and a half minutes didn't even score. Okay. I'm liking this defense. Talk about your halftime adjustments.
Mhm.
Okay. On the offensive side, all right, Cody Fajardo, very similar stats to Drew Brown. 20 of 30 for 269, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. But I don't know. I felt that Fajardo looked, just from the eye test, looked better than Drew Brown out there. I'm happier to have Fajardo as my quarterback than Mr. Brown right now. But of course, the secret to this game, as fantasy football master Joe Pritchard knew very well, was Walter Fletcher. Wow. Wow. What a game. 82 yards rushing, 1 touchdown, 3 receptions for 61 yards, and a touchdown. And the really insane thing is this: he had 61 yards receiving. He had 61 yards receiving after the catch. So literally 3 times at least. I think it was three. I don't think he. I think he only had 3 targets. 3 times he's getting hit at the line of scrimmage with the ball and creating. Fantastic! What a game by Fletcher. I'm
And you
not
know
sure
what's
I.
funny is you're sitting here. Yeah, I had a good week in fantasy. I was debating between Walter Fletcher and Johnny Augustine for my cheap running back spot because we've talked about my philosophy of having a money running back and a cheap running back because you don't always get production out of that slot.
Uh,
So then I picked Augustine because he was starting. He did fine. I think 13 or 14 points.
hey, for the money, he was awesome.
Yeah.
Because I,
And Walter
based
Fletcher
on
was only 2,000 more, and
yeah,
he did a whole lot more. I thought about it too.
yeah.
I just wasn't sure how the breakdown was going to be of is he going to be the guy in Montreal this year, or are they sharing time? And well, I overthought that one, didn't I?
I actually did not pull the trigger on Fletcher. I had a chance to, but I could still afford Mills, right? So I went with Mills, who also had a terrific week. So I can't complain too much. I got the W. I got about 110 points, as near as I can tell. And Joe had a fantastic week. This is a tad off topic, but hey, I'm so excited to talk about this. Nice week, Joe. I'm going to ask you a specific question about your team later on. But would you like to take a victory lap?
No, my week one was
Okay.
bad enough that that was just the law of averages working.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Could be the numbers balancing out. I'm a big believer in that. Uh, yeah, yeah. Okay. Yeah, this is the problem with weekly fantasy or daily fantasy and other sports is that after the week's over, it's you're starting from zero again. Right? Oh yeah, good week, but we're on to Edmonton. It's like
Which also means you're not done when your star player goes out in week one to an ACL.
that's
So
true. That's true. That's true. The luck factor is decreased a little bit. But um I just want to say I love this team. This is a great team. I was looking at the other side as well, um, Edmonton side. I gotta say, McLeod Bethel Thompson, who looked so good in game one, they really shut him down in this one.
I mean, you're Montreal. I hope you're shutting down Edmonton. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that's quite the flex you're making it out to be here.
No,
Like that's
I'm.
expected. You're in a new position. I understand. You're not used to this idea of your team being the dominant team in the league.
Right.
So let me just teach you that that's supposed to happen. Because I remember over the last 2 or 3 years, I've been pulling you along. Like this Montreal team's better than you think. It's better than you think. Now they are good. They're supposed to do that.
Well, okay. I'm not going to debate. I'm not going to debate how awesome my team is. I wouldn't want to do that, but I was just shocked. I mean, maybe it's because again, maybe it's because this week my opposition had Bethel Thompson at quarterback. The Elks herd, of course, they're going to take Bethel Thompson at quarterback, and the fantasy numbers 8 fantasy points. I mean, again, going into this week, how many people thought that Bethel Thompson would statistically be worse than Drew Brown? And yet he was. And here's the thing. I mean, Bethel Thompson's got some quality receivers out there. Eugene Lewis, Curly Grimes, Hergy Maala, Dylan Mitchell. These guys are all quality. He had them all in the first game as well. But in this game, it's 42 attempts, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions, 7.1 yards per attempt. They don't even try and play long ball on the Alouettes here. So I don't know. I mean, you can tell me that the Montreal defense is stifling and whatnot, but the Edmonton Elks here now are 0-2, and competitive they may have been, but if they're gonna throw away the close games in the fourth quarter, and they're not even going to be competitive against playoff teams. Well, this could be a long season again in Edmonton.
Yeah, that's always the possibility.
Okay. All right. Let us move on to BC Lions 26, Calgary Stampeders 17. Bit of a baffling game. So I'm going to pass this one to you, Joe, first. What were your impressions? What were your takeaways here?
It was kind of a hard one to really stay focused on because it just didn't seem
Okay.
like either team was really clicking.
Uh-huh.
I keep hearing about how BC's got this fantastic explosive offense. I haven't seen it yet. I know Vernon's doing his best, but he's not getting a ton of time right now.
Mhm.
Uh, they don't seem to have any semblance of a run game, even with William Stanback. He might be 1 year past his prime at this point, just early on from what I'm seeing BC trying to use him for.
Mhm.
And then Calgary just didn't have enough firepower to overcome BC when they were struggling. Uh, but really, my main focus on the game was it was amazing to see that place filled.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And they got a win to go home with. It wasn't,
Yeah.
they weren't burning out the scoreboard, but they did
Yeah.
enough to keep the home fans happy. And if you get 5,000 of the new fans to stick around for the next one or buy the seven game pack that they got offered right now for a good price. I mean, they're in a position right now where they could turn out to be the dominating force in the West for a long, long time if they can take
Wow.
advantage of what they've got going. Because they're going to start drawing if they're going to start drawing 10,000 more people than everybody else. Great. I mean, there is a salary cap. It's not going to mean that they're going to go spend money left, right, and center, but they're going to be able to they're going to be able to make some mistakes. They're going to be able to go, okay, we spent the money on the wrong guy. Yeah, we got some more. We got the ability now to a potentially be profitable in Vancouver, which is fantastic because
Yes.
that's been a trouble spot since the
Yep.
mid '80s, on and off. I mean, sometimes it was sometimes it was worse than others. I mean, every team in the '90s was in trouble at one point or the other, except for maybe Edmonton.
Mhm.
But you always heard. For the 20 years I've been paying close attention to this league, it was always the big three cities.
Yeah.
Don't you know? You know, you're thinking that the big three cities they should be the dominant financial forces in the league,
Yeah.
and they're not.
Yeah.
It'd be great
Yeah.
to see Vancouver become one.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, way back in the day, I go back further than you. So way back in the day, you still remember reports of Montreal and Toronto just filling these huge stadiums.
Oh yeah,
You
yeah,
uh, back in the '80s and whatnot, '70s,
yeah.
when in America USC is bringing in 100,000 a game. This kind of situation, right? People used to
And
pack these
they
huge
were putting
stadiums along.
50K
Yeah,
in the mid '70s, and then the drop
yeah,
off was swift and dramatic and never
yeah,
really rebounded.
yeah.
I think BC, what were they? Still, they were filling BC Place at the beginning, and that dropped off after a few years, and never
Mhm,
really has come back to the point where they can expect that. But it'd be
mhm,
great just to be able to talk positively. Hey, look, things are going well here.
mhm.
It's been a sore spot on and off for years. They've had troubles. They've rebounded some. They've dropped back. It'd be nice to go. Hey, look, they're really making positive strides here. It looks like they're back in the community. It looks like people are talking about them again. I can walk around in Vancouver wearing a Grey Cup hat and not have somebody behind me whisper, "Who watches the CFL anyway?" True story. That happened in 2016.
Wow. Well, yeah, but they knew what it was at least.
Yeah.
I mean, no joke, no joke. I heard that over the weekend last weekend. They played the UFL championship.
Mhm.
Right now, there have been, I believe, a few leagues called the UFL before this, right?
Yeah, there was a one in like the late 2000s, early 2010,
Yeah,
where they played in the fall and like they had 4 or 5 teams each year because teams kept dropping in and out.
yeah, and like this league, most of the teams were in the South, if I remember correctly. Pretty much like this league, where I think you have like one team that can basically be considered the North, and you have St. Louis, which is the south of the central U.S. But so, I just heard that this was on. Then I look at the standings board. I look at the teams in this league, and I'm like, whoa, okay, this is that merger league. But they've only got 4 USFL teams in there, right? Again, like they folded brands like the Breakers, out of this league. And I was just like, wow, this thing was totally off my radar. So at least at least your detractor friend knew what the CFL was. Until last week I was barely cognizant of this UFL. I didn't know they were already playing this merger league, but yeah, sure
Yeah,
enough.
that was yeah, they made it happen.
Wow.
I mean,
Wow.
considering how it's gone over the past decade for spring leagues,
Mhm.
the fact that it's made it in some way, shape, or form,
Uh-huh.
like some of these teams have made it 3 years, is you know either
Yeah.
either something to praise or something to go, what are you still doing here? But uh, it sure beats having a league just decide to go completely under after like 8 weeks,
Oh
which has
yeah.
happened.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
there's definitely some positives to sticking the course, or for staying the course there anyway.
Yeah, well, I think the moral of the story is that they have a league where they actually have some recognizable brands. You know, I was a bit surprised that they folded the Philly Stars and the New Jersey Generals out of
Well,
this league. I mean, I always thought that those
no,
were two.
nobody beyond us sickos are gonna go. Oh, I remember that. I kind of hated the fact they took the likenesses of these teams anyway because it's just such a different scenario.
Mm,
It
yeah.
wasn't let's go foolishly and throw money around and try to compete with the NFL, even though we're definitely never actually going to catch them. This is more of okay, who can so who there's no flash to it. There's no name.
Right.
There's no nothing.
Yeah, there's no names. That's the main thing. There's,
Which I mean, you could say that about the CFL in the US too, from where we're standing. Like
eh,
nobody else around us is gonna go, oh, we know that name and that name and that name, and we know this brand and that brand. Like they just kind of took the brands from something that happened 40 years ago and said, oh, this is refresh. It's like that don't make any sense. I mean,
right.
at least went better though than the rebranding of the Arena Football League this year.
Yeah. 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 See, again, like this stuff is completely off the radar. Completely off the radar. So, which the CFL is not. Now, okay, you started with BC. So yeah, I'll touch on BC. I like how BC took over in the fourth quarter, scoring the touchdown, adding the field goal, which basically killed the game. It also killed my bet this week. I picked Calgary plus the 8, and it was BC -9.
I,
So, unfortunately, can't win them all. So ends my awesome winning streak, which goes back to like week 18 of last season. But you win some, you lose some. BC looked, I guess, pretty good overall. We're kind of used to seeing more than 16 points out of 26 points out of this team. Vernon Adams is not spectacular. 17 of 29, 277 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Again, yeah, very good week. I mean, can't say anything about that, but we're expecting more from Vernon Adams a little bit. Alexander Hollins, of course, had a killer week. Again, another good pick by you. He and Justin McGinnis combined for 12. Oh, right. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say. Yeah, so Vernon was 17 of 29, and Hollins and McGinnis accounted for 12 of those catches and 188 of the 277 yards, plus both the touchdowns. So I feel like Adams doesn't have all the weapons in the quiver that he had last year.
No, he
Uh,
certainly doesn't, but he still has
yeah,
a couple of decent ones for sure.
he's leaning on his go-tos right now. And I don't know. I think against the better defenses, against the better secondaries, like in Montreal, I don't think they're going to be able to get away with this kind of thing. Um, in general, yeah, okay, good for BC for getting that first win. Not exactly blown away, but good for them. Question for you, Joe, and this was being talked about during the game and, of course, afterwards on CFL Twitter. Should the Lions really be letting Vernon Adams do these 3rd-and-1 runs?
No, that's what
uh,
you have Jake Dolegala for, right?
right. That's and I'm not sure what the thinking was here. Again, like there were some baffling things in this game from the coaching side, and this to me was one of them. I mean,
I
he
could
went in there.
possibly defend it in the way that okay, you see that he's in for the sneaks every so often. You know, you could play hurry up and have him run the sneak, and nobody's the wiser at that point. You get the first down and you move on. But then you can also have your star quarterback in there in case you decide it's 2nd-and-1. Let's not do the sneak. Let's do the play action and heave it downfield.
Mhm,
The Strevler special, right?
right.
Except you're not doing it with a backup at that point. You're doing with your starter.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Right?
that's in
But
this
then
game. Yeah.
it didn't work out so hot this game. But if you're building to that, then at least I can get it.
Yeah, but again, here we are. We're looking at a week where both of Edmonton's touchdowns, backup quarterback. First touchdown of the season for Ottawa, backup quarterback doing that little 1 yarder. Adams plus Adams, he has not exactly been uninjured his entire career. I just don't see it. And not a great move there. Not a
And
great
if you remember too, Bo got hurt last year trying to get out of the end
Right,
zone on a short,
right.
and that
That's
was an
right.
impromptu call. That wasn't a planned call, obviously, but
Mhm. But he was
there's
in
risk
there in
there.
that situation.
There's risk there, yeah.
Mhm, 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 mhm. Yeah. So, yeah, just some baffling decisions there. I also wanted to touch on really briefly Calgary. Calgary seems like they can play ball this year. Again, it feels like they're getting by on a lot of smarts. They don't have the names that they've had in previous years. But I was a little bit baffled by stuff like, last week, what I liked in week one, what I liked about the Stamps is they had this nice balance of running and passing, right? This game, 33 pass attempts versus 17 rushes, including one by, guess what? Third down quarterback Tommy Stevens, right? So basically only 16, proper carries on first and second down, let's say. I was wondering about that. I think BC BC defense is not that bad that you could just air it out against them. Um, yeah, I don't know that. Again, I think Calgary can play ball. It's just I wonder if they have the horses, so to speak.
Yeah, it's kind of the same thing that they were dealing with last year. Like you
Yeah,
had to go beat them. They weren't going to beat themselves,
right.
but it wasn't exactly the highest bar you needed to achieve to be able to beat them either. You could bring your B game and still be okay.
Mhm, 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 mhm. Right. Not this year. All right. The week closed out with Saskatchewan Roughriders 33, Hamilton Tiger Cats 30. Now, I did appreciate the over, hitting the over on this game. I did give out that pick on the show last week. But Joe, I'm a little bit disturbed. Okay. I ask you, are the Riders going to be the team with the horseshoe up their wing wang this season?
Ask me after Labor Day.
Oh man. Oh man, I can't wait that long. This is going to make me nuts.
No,
This is going to
this
make me
seems to happen. This has happened over the past couple of seasons too. Well, they'll get off to a 3-1 start. It's 4-2. Have a game or two that they pull out where it doesn't seem like they should have had a chance. I, I'm seeing positive strides. I'm still seeing the penalties being an issue.
Oh.
That's not going to be an immediate fix. I know that there's fans on social media going, "Why hasn't he fixed this already?" It was like, well, you can't take every player that commits penalties and get rid of them instantly, right? You have to build a culture that doesn't that makes it less acceptable to take penalties than it is right now. That's coming. I have no doubt about that. It's just not going to be instant.
Wow, I am surprised that you are so positive because man, I did not see much I liked here at all. I it's tough to say that about a team that scored 33 points, but wow. But okay, it's tough to say that about a team that scored 33 points. However, the opposition was Hamilton, who does have quite the porous defense. Uh, but wow, wow. Aside from Schaefer Baker, did you have Schaefer Baker on your fantasy
No,
team this week?
no.
Okay, I think he was the one guy you did miss, I guess. And he was awesome. He was unstoppable. Jareth Stevens had a great game as well. Okay, they have a combined 221 yards, uh, and Schaefer Baker had the two receiving touchdowns in the game. Right? Okay, this isn't that surprising. I mean, these are quality receivers, and they've got the CFL fantasy football machine Trevor Harris there at the quarterback throwing to them. Right? Okay, the Riders will score points passing the ball this season if you let them. Right? But in basically every other area, they were outplayed by Hamilton, who is now an 0-2 team. Um, the defense, wow, the defense literally created zero turnovers. They had zero sacks. They even had zero tackles for a loss. Okay, this defense is not you know, rushing the quarterback. They're not reacting to these plays quickly enough.
They're not
Defenses are getting
scaring anybody.
right on defense. No way. I mean, they may be able to score some points, but you'll be able to score on them, as evidenced by Hamilton, who doesn't exact. Well, this week their offense looked really good, but hasn't been scoring 30 points a game for quite some time. You know, back on offense, the line allows 4 sacks, including 3 from Brandon Barlow. Wow. Definitely the outstanding player of the week, at least on defense, if not overall. Um, he was he was he was giving some nightmares out there to Trevor. Last year he did the same thing against the Owls for the Argos. And I believe that was the last game the Alouettes lost to date. In fact, that's the last game we've lost since then, was when Barlow just teed off. So he had a great game at the expense of the Riders' offensive line. Uh, I think because of this offensive line, well, I blame this offensive line, let's say, for AJ Ouellette's very subpar performance. I think he had like 27 yards. And, even in special teams, Mario Alford didn't do anything this week. His longest return was 13 yards. So, oh, and by the way, 11 penalties for 115 yards, including another misconduct, aka unsportsmanlike conduct. Right? So it's like, and yet this team is 2-0. I think it's just not fair. It's just not fair. I mean, if the Riders are going to be the team of destiny this year, I don't think I can handle this. Um, okay, so on the Ticats side, okay, you did play at quarterback Bo Levy Mitchell in on your fantasy team. Okay,
Yeah, he was sitting there for less than 10K, and I wasn't all
right,
that scared of the Riders' defense going into Hamilton.
right, okay, all right. Because I was going to ask you what was the thinking on this. I am nearly convinced that there are only two and a half, let's say, quarterbacks in this league worth playing in fantasy, and Bo is not one of them until last week when he scored 25 points. And I believe he was the highest scoring quarterback in the league this week. So nice call on that. Nice call on that. Especially since considering, actually, I should say that the Riders defense did play some nice coverage against Tim White in this game. I should say that, but that was about the only plus for this Riders defense. I did like the way they were blanketing him.
And
But
that was the
despite
only
that,
hole in my fantasy team too,
right,
wasn't it? I think stacked. I stacked the two.
right. Yep. Yeah, that was your battery combination in this week. But Bo had a nice game despite White not having one. Again, I feel like the Tiger Cats are the cursed team this year. Again, losing both of these games by 3 points and 4 points. And yet here we are. They're 0-2. So, um, okay. Okay, I could ask you this. We're sitting here. The Ticats are at the bottom of the East. They're 0-2. Everybody else in the East is undefeated. What do you make of the Ticats at this point, early in the season?
Well, their offense is playing better than I expected.
Mhm.
Their defense isn't surprising me that much. Again, I don't think I had them going too high. I think what I had them for tying to keep Edmonton out of the crossover. So I mean, I didn't have them all that high to begin with. And if they're going to lose games like that, they're going to finish even lower because that's a game they should have had.
Mhm, mhm, Yep, yep. Or last week, you could argue that they could have had the win in week one as well. It's here's an 0-2 team that could be 2-0, but not. Let's see. I wonder if the Ticats are the hard luck team in the league this year, which is unfortunate for them. But I'm not feeling too bad about it as an Alouettes fan. Okay, should we go on to next week?
Yep.
Okay, before we do that, let me get in a plug for the sponsor of our show, the sponsor of the Rouge, White, and Blue here at the Shotgun Sports Network. We're talking about Royal Retros at royalretros.com. And when they say retros, they mean memorabilia and gear. Get your ball caps, jerseys, t shirts, long sleeve shirts, hoodies, jackets, and the proverbial and ever interesting more. We were just talking about the USFL before. They have some old school USFL gear, and I see where some of the new Boston slash New Orleans. Who was the other team? Where did the
Port-
Breakers play? Yeah,
Portland.
that's right. Boston,
3 teams
Portland,
in
New
3 years.
Orleans. Yeah, Breakers. Well, 4 years, right? They got some of that gear on sale right now. Maybe because the UFL season is over. But over at royalretros.com, they represent dozens of teams from lots of defunct leagues. We have the USFL, the Arena Football League, the World Football League, XFL, Football Canada, various pro hockey leagues, including the WHA, ABA basketball, and of course, the majors. Defunct teams from the major leagues like the St. Louis Browns and Seattle Pilots, and also teams from the old Negro Leagues and Pacific Coast League. Final point, best of all, get 10% off anything in the store when you use promo code RWBCFL. We should put that in the ticker tape at some point.
It is.
Oh, this is in the ticker tape. Okay, so catch it on the ticker tape. You can use that code RWBCFL at checkout at royalretros.com for 10% off. It's a great store. Again, I have put some stuff on order. I am going back to the States, and so soon on this show, I will be showing off the gear.
Oh, I
Right.
better hurry up and catch up.
Right. So, I would like to say before we begin the previews, picks, predictions of week 3 games that I was awesome in CFL Pick'em. I must confess, I did go back on one of my picks that I made on this show. I switched over to BC from Calgary uh, for for reasons including I couldn't imagine the Stampeders at 2-0, and I had to pick some home teams this week. I did have Ottawa though. I did actually go with Ottawa, like I threatened to do on the show. Now, I may have switched to BC and Pick'em, but I figure I'm karmically accounted for because I did lose the Calgary plus 8 points at the sports book. So fair is fair. But 4-0, and Joe, and what was even more awesome was they have that sort of tiebreaker or the bonus points thing at the end of the CFL Pick'em contest, which is margin of victory. And I had Saskatchewan by 4. So almost nailed the perfect week. Missed it by 1 point in CFL Pick'em. So I don't know, Joe. Are Pick'em picks worth anything actually?
They're definitely worth a lot of laughs from time to time.
Okay. Touche. I will take it. All right. Let's talk about some lines and some CFL pick'em. We start off the week with Ottawa 7-point underdogs at Montreal. I was looking at the injury reports. Now we're recording this on a Tuesday night, USA time. So the injury reports are not very extensive at this point. However, would say that in this game, nobody of note on either side is likely to miss this game. That's not already on the various DLs. Um, I guess for me, 7 points is the question. Like I said before, I fear Ottawa a lot less now that I've seen them play. I guess I'm past that fear of the unknown. Uh, I think Montreal could cover the 7. I wouldn't be too sure, but I think this is another win for the Alouettes. I think it's
I
that
think
simple.
I think so too. I think Ottawa's defense is going to make it interesting for the first half. I just think Montreal's defense is too much for a young quarterback like Drew Brown to solve in his first shot at him.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say that maybe in the second or third go rounds this year, Drew Brown doesn't put up some points and put up some numbers. I just don't think the first time around, when they're already clicking, is going to be the time to take a gamble on him in CFL fantasy, let's say.
Yeah, not the best week for that for sure. Okay, so next up, all right, interesting line here, interesting game. BC Lions 2-point underdogs at Winnipeg, right? They seem to be implying that if this is a BC home game, BC is the favorite here. The two teams, darlings of many predictors going into the season, have a combined 1 win through the 2 weeks. Again, this is a Winnipeg matter, Joe. So I'm going to go to you first. What do you think? First W?
I have a hard time seeing them go 3-0, or 0-3,
3, yeah.
but I don't like this matchup right now. And the reason being is Winnipeg's defensive line is pretty nicked up. And BC's offensive line hasn't been great shakes, but is the defensive line going to be strong enough to make that matter? Because if it doesn't matter and VA's got all day, the game's over.
Mhm.
On the other hand, I don't. I still don't see BC's defense being um, all that scary. On the other hand, if Winnipeg's going to this game with a nicked up or even without Brady Oliveira, they can have the defensive line pin their ears back and they can play pass coverage and go, okay, come come get past this. And I don't know if Winnipeg's capable of that right now.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, the MVP, probably the most valuable thing you can do if you were to bet this game, for example, is to make sure you do check that injury list. Now, basically, Winnipeg only has the four names on it. But one has to wonder about some of these. From the offensive side, there's Brady Oliveira and Dalton Schun. From the defensive side, there's Kyrie Wilson, who I believe went out in the first quarter last week, and Dedrick Nichols. You're the Winnipeg sports guy. Do you have any information on any of this? Do you know
No,
anything?
except
Yeah.
that if I had to pick four names of Winnipeg players to be on that list, those guys wouldn't be anywhere near that list.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Like that's a significant chunk on an already struggling team
Yeah.
on the injury lists.
Yeah.
That doesn't make me feel at a lot of warm and fuzzies.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to talk myself out of just balancing the numbers and going with Winnipeg here. Basically, for me, the like you implied at the beginning of your take is that I find it hard to imagine Winnipeg 0-3, whereas BC 1-2 is not unimaginable. But if that's my only argument, that's not very tight. Now, on the
Mm,
other
kind of
hand,
where I'm falling to.
yeah, on the other hand, I mean, it's just one guy, but Adam Bighill played last week and looked pretty shagged out. So I don't think he was game ready. So I think that even just that, even if he's a bit more, if his stamina is a bit higher this week, that could make a difference too. I mean, there's a reason why this is +2 at the sports book. I mean, they think, the bookmakers think this thing's going down to one score. So I don't know, and they did pretty well in that Calgary game last week. So I tend to fear the bookmakers right now. Okay, so third game, Edmonton Elks 6-point underdogs at the Toronto Argonauts. After week one, I fear the Argos. I I think that poor Edmonton probably is looking at an 0-3 start here. I can't imagine that Edmonton is going to play ball. I think with this team, I think that the key question here is how do you like Cameron Dukes as a fantasy quarterback this week?
Don't know if I put all my eggs in that basket. On the
Okay.
other hand, it's an intriguing thought.
Uh-huh.
I don't have the numbers in front of me. What he's up for, but if he's under 10, I'd at least have to think about it.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna pick. I'm going with Toronto this
Me
week
too.
for sure. Yeah,
I mean,
because
Edmonton's going to have to show. Edmonton's very, very clearly in the show me category right now. They're going to have to show me that they can get into a game in the fourth quarter and come away on top
yeah, right.
instead of being close because they were close a lot of times last year. Didn't really help them much.
Right. If a W is a W and an L is an L, right? Okay. Last game of the weekend. Wow. Strange early home and home here. Hamilton Tiger Cats 2.5-point underdogs at the Riders. Okay. Seriously. The luck runs out. Okay. This is a home and home. Hamilton should have won last week. Hamilton played a better game. I'm betting that Hamilton comes away with this one. Wins outright. Never mind the 2.5 points. Wins
I'd like
outright.
you, I'd like you to be right, but what about Hamilton makes you think that they are capable of finishing a game right now?
Well, I mean, Bo Levy Mitchell.
That after
That
last
enough
week,
of a
maybe not quite. I'd love to
Okay.
do it. I really want Bo to get to have to be Bo again. It's been 5 years.
Mhm,
I'd love him to be Bo again for at least another year or two because it was great watching him in his prime when he was kicking everybody's ass. Let's just be blunt about it. Even
yeah.
though it was usually my team on the losing end of those, it's like this guy's a superstar. I
Oh yeah.
love watching him play. I'd
Yeah.
love to be able to have that feeling a few more times before he goes into the Canadian Football Hall of Fame.
Mhm, mhm,
I'm rooting for it.
mhm,
It's just it's been so long since he was able to close things out as well as he used to.
mhm.
I don't think I would sit there if he had the ball at the 30 with a minute and a half on the clock and it's his time to shine. And I don't know if I'm sitting there knowing the game is over. How about that?
Mhm. Okay. All right. Um, it's not so much what makes me think that Hamilton can hang. It's more like what makes me think that the Riders
That Saskatchewan are going to
are
be able
gonna
to close
clamp
it
down.
out in the same
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
follow.
Yeah.
It's just I
Not on.
feel like Hamilton's just hasn't been over the past few years a team that strikes fear in anybody. Saskatchewan
Well,
strikes fear in it's Saskatchewan's more consistent before Labor Day when their culture would go to crap at that point and everybody
uh,
would just start pointing fingers and the head coaches start setting up bowling tournaments and everybody would just go, oh wait, this is happening again.
well, at this point as well, I mean, Hamilton is the second highest scoring team in the league, right? I mean, they've got 28 and 30 here. This team can score, so you know maybe there should be some fear, especially like from a defense that like Saskatchewan that's going to let you score a lot of points.
Maybe.
So,
And the Winnipeg fan, I mean, would love to sit there and see Hamilton put up 37 and hold Saskatchewan to far lower than that.
mhm.
I just don't know if I see Hamilton's defense holding up their end of the bargain in a shootout.
Secretly, I just want 3 Eastern teams to win this week. So, so you're quite doom and gloom then because you've got BC and you've got Saskatchewan this week. So pretty depressing week for you there. Your team's about to go 3 games back of the Riders.
Yeah,
Pretty gloomy. Okay,
if
I
I'm taking everything in a vacuum and going this matchup versus this matchup and that one versus that one, that's what I come up with.
mhm. Okay. Okay, great. Well, I will disagree. I will take Winnipeg. I will take Hamilton. We both have Montreal and Toronto. One of us will probably have a good week in Pick'em. So,
Probably, and I hope it's you.
yes, you
Like
do.
like my consolation prize for if things go the way I don't want them to go is at least I got a good pick 'em week.
Right. Well, you had a good fantasy week this week too. So, lots of ways to look at this optimistically. Of course, I can say that being an Alouettes fan. All right. Anything else? Close out this episode, Joe.
No, I
Okay.
mean
No.
I guess the only thing I really have is I'm thinking about 50s baseball players because of the Willie Mays news.
Yes.
Um, Yogi Berra had a saying, "It's getting late kind of early." At Winnipeg, it might be getting late kind of early, but
Yeah,
I
Willie
hope
May.
but everything they've shown me over the last 5 years says they get over this. I just don't like this week's matchup.
Uh-huh.
And having it happen after the first two games is just not really sitting well with me.
Not ideal. Yeah.
No, it's
Um,
not ideal.
yeah, you mentioned Willie
I'm
Mays.
not dooming I'm not dooming them to 5-13 or anything. It's just I don't love this one.
Yeah, like I said at the beginning of the podcast, these happen. These things happen. It's an 18 game season, right? plenty of time to make up even a 3-game hole against the currently West leading Riders. Um, you mentioned a bit off topic, but hey, we're closing out the show anyway. You mentioned Willie Mays. It's like, wow, it's been a rough month for, let's say, North American sports fans. I mean, during the NBA Finals, both Bill Walton and Jerry West passed away as well from the basketball game. So it's been quite the week for sports heroes in North America this week. It's interesting too. I did want to say this a bit earlier in the show. It's interesting too that a lot of folks in America, now that Stanley Cup, now that NBA championship are done, a lot of people in America are going, "Damn, there's no sports." Well, geez, hey, tune into the CFL. Tune into Euro Cup or Copa America, for that matter. There's plenty of awesome sports still out there.
Yeah, I didn't check the score. Last I saw, Edmonton was up on Florida 4-2. So
Oh, great.
Stanley
Okay,
Cup
so the cup is
might
still
not be
going.
over quite yet,
Okay, the cup
but
is still going. Great. Good for
it's getting
Edmonton.
there. It's
Good for
getting there.
the Oilers. Good for the Oilers. Come on, let's pull this one out, Edmonton. Come on. Much rather see that than that great traditional center of hockey culture, Florida. It might be nicer for Edmonton to win this one, all things being equal, and being sick of Florida champions in hockey.
Well,
So,
as a fan of all things Winnipeg, I can't endorse Edmonton winning anything, but hey, that's just an inherited trait. So
I don't know. It beats
I
Florida.
will feel good for my Edmonton friends. I won't get too mad
Yeah,
about it
yeah,
if they come with the reverse sweep. So
yeah. This came up. This came up a little while ago, where if there's a Canadian team in the NHL Finals versus an American team, right? The American fans, or the casual fans, I should say, because NHL fans know better, but the casual fans will assume that all the Canadians will be backing the Canada-based NHL team in the Stanley Cup Finals, and it's just like I saw a comment on that, and when the commentator says, "Hey, I root against Vancouver all season. There's no way I'm cheering for them in the Stanley Cup Finals." you know, and I mean, this was a Canadian. It's just like so. I'm not sure why Americans would assume that, but
because Americans make a lot of terrible assumptions about anything that's outside of the of the U.S. border, and to be fair, a lot
often.
of inside the U.S. border too.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, let's wrap the show before we go off on too many tangents to close it out. My name's Oz Davis for my co-host Joe Pritchard. This has been the Rouge, White, and Blue CFL podcast, member of the Shotgun Sports Network. Talk to you next week.